going into this, or until the 95-minute mark, I thought I was going to be saying something along the lines of, how do I wake up from this nightmare that I'm currently living in? But it turns out that the result is much better than expected. I mean, we weren't looking good there for a hell of a lot of time, a whole lot of nothing. But given the circumstances, I mean, we went into the game probably wanting the 3 points, but, you know, given all the circumstances throughout the 90 to 95 minutes, 1 point is an absolute steal of a result, and it could have huge implications. With that goal that we scored, we're back above Leeds in the goal difference department. Also, Leeds can't draw and overtake us in the final, or for the final game week. They've got to win. So, obviously, it opens up more opportunities for us to survive, or at least possess a bit of optimism going into the final week. But the Pickford save in stoppage time, and then the goal, what a crazy sequence of events. I'm not going to sugarcoat the fact that we played like absolute garbage today, but a lot of that was inflicted by the football gods, which obviously aren't on our side. Now, my players of the game for this one are going to be James Garner and Dwight McNeil. Going to do a bit of a joint player of the match thing, because those two obviously had a completely different responsibility, both playing unnatural positions. I mean, Dwight McNeil more so in a natural position because he was playing out wide, but James Garner is usually a guy in the middle of the park and dictating the pace of the game, the tempo, the passing. He's got a lot of options, whereas, you know, playing on the flank, he's only really got one sort of direction he can go. But those two were excellent. And look, they could have absolutely gone back into their shell, or they could have had an absolute stinker. But to be fair, they held up their end of the bargain exceptionally well. They seemed to be the only two players that possessed any real urgency. There was one sequence where I think Demarai Gray actually took it off Dwight McNeil, and Dwight McNeil was trying to, you know, go in a very straightforward, direct kind of way, bringing the ball forward, but Demarai Gray was just slowing things back down, and he really killed the pace of that possession or that sequence. That sort of sums up the kind of attitude that Dwight McNeil and James Garner had today. And look, I don't think they really put a foot wrong given the circumstances, and obviously a lot of instability today with all the rotation switch-ups and formation changes, a lot of instability, as I said, just a lack of organisation, a lot of discombobulation, and in times like that, when you don't have the stability, you need composed players, and those two were very composed on the ball amidst a lot of chaos. And look, a lot of people are talking about James Garner picking up a yellow card when Wolves were in transition on the break. He just took the man down, he picked up a yellow card for it, simple stuff. That's what we should have done for the first goal, and we're going to, you know, go through that today. It's a piece of IQ that not a lot of players have possessed for this football club this season, and we obviously saw that in the first half. Now, the midfield trio of Doucouré, Onana and Idrissa Gana Gueye, obviously they were also interchangeable today with the lack of stability, and they weren't really coping too well. A lot of times they were flat-footed, a lot of times there were heavy touches, a lot of times they were getting beaten out. They sometimes were positioning themselves in no man's land, where they weren't really clogging our own penalty box and making it more difficult for Wolves to score. There were opportunities in there, but they were also sitting back. Like, they weren't pressuring the ball carrier, and they were just able to bring it forward far too easily and get into much deeper lying areas. And yeah, they did a whole lot of nothing. Not really any attacking threat. Defensively, they were giving the ball away. Obviously, that was the byproduct of how we conceded the goal, turning the ball over in a really vulnerable spot when we had no one back, then failing to commit the foul. I mean, that just sums this team up. That whole first half sums the team up. Losing your striker, obviously we haven't had the striker all year. We've lost all our fullbacks now. I don't know the status of Nathan Patterson. Obviously, all year round, there's had to be players stepping up in unnatural positions because of the lack of depth in these areas. I mean, we saw what happened when Nathan Patterson and DCL went out. The attacking side of things lost its punch. Defensively, we looked out of form. Michael Keane was playing right back. I mean, I thought I'd never see the day, but Everton continues to prove me wrong. Every single time we take our foot off the pedal, mistakes always seem to seep through the cracks. And it's always an Everton trademark kind of thing where we play well the first 20 minutes, we start on fire, you know, we've got a bit of pep in our step, and then, you know, we have like a 5-minute period where we sort of ease off, and then there's like one chance for the opposition and they score. I think we had 6 shots to 0 in the first half hour, and then Wolves go up the other end and one shot is one on target and a goal. Talking about the goal, I mean, that goal is like a blueprint of how we've conceded so many goals this season. I mean, like, how many times has Pickford parried it away back into the danger zone, and it's always been the opposition quicker to anticipate? I mean, given the amount of times it's occurred, you would have thought that there'd be an Everton player smart enough to anticipate that that's going to happen. Or even if it doesn't happen, just anticipate that it potentially could happen. It's really tiresome. I mean, we played a Wolves team that didn't really pose too much threat on the day, and then you concede a goal like that after really dominating the first half hour and being really, well, we weren't clinical, obviously, because if we were, we would have scored goals, but we dominated possession. We seemed to have the upper hand, and you could sense that something was going to happen if we were able to continue that momentum that we had in the early going, but obviously not to be. Obviously, I'll talk about how Wolves didn't really do too much on the day. The amount of times they turned it over in possession was, I mean, quite staggering. A lot of good teams would capitalize on that. Whenever we won possession in, you know, our attacking third, off the back of intercepting it, you would have thought that we'd be a little bit more aggressive and show a bit more urgency given the situation to test the waters and take someone on, but we never were really up for the challenge in that regard, and we were always happy to settle and slow things down and let Wolves set up again, which they were very happy to do, and especially without DCL for the best part of 45 minutes, you know, that's not going to work, because we can't pick out players full stop from lofted passes, and you really expect us to do that with Neil Maupay. And look, Sean Dyche has had to cop a lot of criticism for changes, and well, Michael Keane playing right back, Neil Maupay playing up front instead of Sims has been the main 2 points of discussion. But this guy has his hands tied. He's playing his best number 1 goal contributor at left back out of necessity. His striker's gone down. He doesn't have a backup that's adequate. He's got Michael Keane playing right back, who doesn't even play well in his natural position. On the bench, he had no fullbacks, 2 goalkeepers. I mean, where's the balance there? That's really summing it up. And then, yeah, look, I mean, he played Michael Keane up front in the final 20 minutes. I would not be opposed if DCL is out. I wouldn't care if you played him there or not, because I think he will pose more threat than Maupay. At least if you're going to play hoofball and send it long, you've got a focal point there, or at least someone where you can direct the ball towards, and there seems to be a bit more direction. With Maupay up front, you can't see him as a really good option, because simply he doesn't have hold-up play and he can't get his head to it. So, yeah, I mean, I'm really grasping at loose straws here, but we don't have many options left, do we? And look, we talked about the responsibility thing a little bit before. Damari Gray and Alex Iwobi at least showed a little bit of intent in trying to test the keeper. I mean, it was long shots, so it wasn't really threatening. The keeper didn't really have to move or dive, but at least they were trying. A lot of those players, especially in the first half, were not willing to assume responsibility and take the shot. There was one where Amadou Onana could have pulled the trigger, and he decided to take an extra touch. And that was really the story of the day for the midfielders, as we've said. Heavy touches and just running themselves into trouble when it was really unprovoked. Now, as for the solution, fucked if I know, because, look, I couldn't tell you the formation today. We had Dwight McNeil playing left back, obviously. Michael Keane playing right back. Then he went up front. Then we had Holgate roaming. Yerry Mina was, you know, trying to execute overlap and play like a fullback. You know, we had Garner out wide. I couldn't tell you the formation. We're in a state of instability, and I don't know if the stability is going to return for the rest of the season. Especially with DCL and Patterson out, that just sends the imbalance to a whole new level. Especially when we talk about 2 keepers on the bench. We talk about no fullbacks on the bench when all our fullbacks are injured. I mean, this is just, it's all going back to the board, and it is just incredibly frustrating because you would have thought that last year was going to be a good enough indicator that if we don't make change, we're going to find ourselves in the same spot. And here we are. Here we are. And look, I'm confused. I'm anxious. I'm holding out hope that we stay out of the red zone going into the final week because I don't want to be chasing tail in the final week. If we're in the drop zone, I'm not convinced that we can dig ourselves out of there. Even if Sean Dyche is a tactical masterclass, because we saw today, given the importance of winning the game, these players did not rock up, or the vast majority were passengers. And I mean, their execution, it could be absolutely anything. We know that we don't know what we're going to get from this team. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it all transpires. Nottingham got a win, so they're out of the relegation battle now. It's down to 3, us, Leeds, Leicester. If Leeds win, you know, we're back down into the drop zone. If Leicester win, we're back down into the drop zone. I'm definitely going to be on edge for the next 24 hours. Hopefully this Leeds result is anything but a win. I mean, that point does a lot in terms of, you know, limiting the outcomes that Leeds can achieve in order to overtake us, you know, going into the final week. But we'll see how it goes. But I'm not very excited for this upcoming week where there's going to be a lot of drama. It's going to be a lot around the match fitness of DCL and Patterson and Mikolenko, 3 very key players. Obviously allowing Dwight McNeil to be further forward, allowing Mason Holgate and Michael Keane to not be on the pitch, and Neil Maupay likewise. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. It's like I'm walking through fog. I don't know what is nearby or imminent. We'll see for the ultimate final match reaction next week. Hopefully it's a good result.